Does he have it?
Medeiros is going to get it.
They're going to toss it. They haven't got it.
He's on the outside line though, going into the fastest corner on the circuit. Surely this can't work.
Dominic Ligner has got a sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's caught back into play. Exactly, Miller's still such up. He's not on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Can Barry do it? Big Barry's going to do it. Big Barry!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and well, that's a way to kick off a broadcast. Ben Kesby, welcome everyone to the VWSC Virtual World Sports Car Championship here on CMS with JP Broadcasting. It's round 10 here on the 7th of September, and we are in Japan. We leave the sweltering southern dry heat, and we go to a nice little muggy mountain here in Fuji. And this is going to be what is going to be interesting to see tonight. My name is Bradley Dalton. I'm going to be bringing you all the action. I've got Paul Glover, who's going to be joining me for once. Also doing a little bit of commentary. Michael David not able to make it here today for some personal reasons, but we wish him well. And Paul Glover is going to be joining me instead of just being, you know, in my ear and James's ear as he normally is. He's going to be in your ear as well. We'll see how that goes. But we do, of course, have some housekeeping to get through before we can bring in the beautiful Paul Glover. And let's start out by talking about this schedule that we have going on. It's round 10 here today on the 7th of September. Of course, the Indy 100 and Road Atlanta, round 11, round 12. And then it's just round 13. It's the 2 hours of Bahrain on the 9th of November. And then, well, that's all she wrote for the 2024 season. And of course, let's talk about this wonderful Fuji Speedway. 2.84 miles, 4.5 kilometers, built in 1965. 16 turns with names like Dunlop, Panasonic, Coca-Cola, and yes, you see 100R and 300R, not to be confused with Suzuka. But yes, there is a 100R and a 300R that you'll see plenty of action on here today. And if you're wondering what sort of action, well, I'll tell you right now, Sector 3 is gonna be the challenge, and the weather could be a challenge as well. Sector 3 is really what's gonna push these cars over the edge, under the edge, up the river, through the woods, to Grandma's house we go. Sector 3 is the challenge of the day. Rain ready. We're in the mountains. You never know what's going to happen. We're showing 40 to 50% chance of rain with a nice cool, you know, mid 70 degree Fahrenheit weather. So, but you never know. That could flip on its head and we could get rain out of nowhere. And of course, control the temperatures. The more you push these cars through, the harder you're going to burn up those tires. The more the temperatures go up, the more the tires go, and it just spirals out of control and it becomes very hard to keep up with. Strategy for the GTs. Well, we are looking here at the medium and hard tires for the hypercars and the medium tires for the GTs only. Hypercars, I have seen some split axle strategies. We'll keep our eyes on that as we go through the race today. And as we look at the strategy here for the hypercars, good top speed, good acceleration, strong low corner speed. And I'll tell you right now, the all-wheel drive cars have been looking pretty good around here of course as well. We're looking at 3 to 4 stops across 90 minutes with the ARX being one of the big cars, the Porsche 963, and of course the Tipo is always up there. It's always a car that you have to watch because it's all-wheel drive. The strategy corner in the GTs, you need to preserve your tires, and that is something that is easier said than done. And of course, it's easier said because I'm sitting up here and they're the ones driving. So 30 to 35 minutes for a stint, 2 stops expected across this 90-minute race. And watch the hypercars through Sector 3, because that is really going to be where the challenge comes in for the GT3s as always. But let's bring you through the scores on the doors, and let's talk about where everyone is at here today. Starting with hypercars, I'm going to run through the top 10. I won't get through every driver because 29 hypercars have ran through this season. And if you don't hear me say your favorite, find your favorite, support your favorite. Plenty of points still up for grabs. Dan Kirby in that CMS Pro Porsche 963 at 247 points, with Dan Herlock at 189. Mike Bell in third place at 140. Tom Lane with 118. John Uyen at 101. Cameron Barker at 93.5 points. Mr. Vuda de Bruin in P7 with 76, but half a point behind is Ben Kesby. Timon Subic in ninth place, and Bradley Sellers in P10, just half a point back from Timon. Plenty of positions and opportunities to move your way up through in the hypercar standings. And of course, it is them CMS Pro Porsche 963s leading with 400 points in the team standings, with the Smile Power Racing Asotas in second and the Manta Squid Porsches in P3. So that is your hypercar standings. Again, 29 cars, 8 teams have taken place. Plenty of action left there. Moving along to the next point standings, we're going to be looking at our hypercar AMS. 20 drivers have taken place. I'm going to round out the top 10 and the top 3 just as I did. Jerry Chin, John Mayer, George Angelides right there, 3 points behind John. That's a good battle there in the top 3 that is not done yet. Scar Pope in 4th place. Eric Monet in P5. Craig Pullen in 6th place. Luke Goodlife in P7. Jason Whited in P8. Norm Graff in 9th. Adam Gray in 10th place. And you can see the other 10 drivers. If I haven't said your favorite driver's name, make sure you find him. And of course, the Mistral Porsche 963s currently leading the team standings with a big run over HRC US Acuras there in 2nd place. And Reptile Racing Porsches there in P3 in the team standings. And that is going to be where your hypercar battle ends. GT3s, again, top 10, and we'll go from there. David Junt, JT Tammy, Eduardo Benica, James Walker, Matthew Overton, Johnny Gutierrez, Eliso Neto, Ross Smith. We'll talk to him here in just a little bit. Kyle Vessa, and of course, Mr. Vasilis Katarinakis, all the way through your top 10 GT3s, with Dark Thunder Aston Martins being in 1st place, and Team Pazuzu Aston Martins in 2nd, with the Acura NSX in P3 there in the GT3 standings. Again, plenty of close battles. We're near the end of the season, and some of these places are still up for grabs, and just a few points swing one way or the other could make the difference in the championship. In the GT3 AMs, we're going to be looking here at Matthew Bice with Trash Panda Racing Corvettes at 234, Josh Lepetri at 194, Stephen Bice at 179, Stephen Miller at 172, Mike Bice at 171, Filippo Marazzi at 72 points, James Bowders at 71, Pierre Moreno at 70, Ryan Paulbert Reyes at 19, Ryan Reyes down there at 14 points, Roland Hagerners at 12, and Carl Struhal at 10, with Trash Panda Racing C8 Corvettes at 451 points, with Speed Details in the Acura NSX at 366 points. Again, still plenty of positions, even in this GT3M battle, that can flip around, flip through, and could spell the difference. But as we sit and we wait for the green flag to come down and for the grid, let's see if Ross Smith is available for a quick little chat here as the season's winding down. Ross, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How's everybody doing in the booth?
I'm not doing too bad. Paul Glover is here, and Paul's always doing amazing. I assume he's always doing amazing. He's never told me otherwise, so we're going to stick with it. Ross, I got to ask, we're rounding out the end of the season. I'm going to ask you just on a broad level, has this modern season been everything you wanted and more?
It's definitely been exciting to see all the cars and all the hard work come to fruition. There's still a ton of work going on behind the scenes, not only for next year, but as we work through this year, we're just analyzing all the data. George and the testers are spending a lot of time going through, having ideological and data reviews on how they want to proceed with making some adjustments. Going into this race, there were some weight adjustments that were ultimately decided on for both the 963 and the Isota. So you're going to see some effects there, although both Daniels are putting it up at the front this time. So, it obviously hasn't changed things too much, but we'll see how that affects the pace of the course of the run. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot going on there. So, yeah, we're excited at how it's turned out. There's still a lot of work to do. I can proudly say that we have all of the main test mules done, so they are off in testers' hands as we go in through the rest of September. And then from then on, they're just going to work on getting everything ready for next year for the historic, for the modern. And I'll just be spending a lot of time tweaking a lot of things on the graphic side. I'm going to be working with Eugene Mazur, who's in here today, obviously, running GT3s. And we're going to try and get the sounds updated on these with him. So we can work on the new engine and just really bring this thing all together and start releasing a lot of these guys into the workshop.
I think it's going to be really exciting to start seeing the next iteration of these modern cars come out. Me and Paul were talking about it, and the modern cars are a very strong work. The historic cars are amazing as always, and the modern cars just bring something a little different to it. It's really cool to think that these drivers are driving something that, I can turn around and sit and watch on TV and watch real life drivers run. It's very amazing what Storm Gang has done with that one-to-one through on these cars versus the real life counterparts. I don't know how you all do it, but it's impressive.
Well, I mean, to reiterate what we talked about way early on in the season and everything, I mean, George Angelides does work for HRC. He has inside knowledge on everything that's going on in sports car. Well, maybe not everything, but he can certainly infer a lot based on his knowledge set, and he certainly knows a lot anyway. And it's and of course all of our testers. I mean, we have a lot of professional race car drivers that run with us. We get a lot of feedback from professional race car drivers. So I mean, there's a ton of knowledge and a ton of data that is going through here and giving us a lot of feedback, and it really influences the final product. And we're very proud of that. And there will be times when a lot of people will kind of gripe about this or that or something, and in the end, it becomes small things. And, as we kind of look around and we say, this is what we've managed to accomplish so far, and we can feel very good about how the cars are. They come out and the parity is very close, not only between each other with the BOP, but also with the handling characteristics of the cars, how they are compared to real life. I'll reiterate that Simon Pagenaud, he used our ARX to train for the Daytona 24 back in 2023. And he said, minus some of the hybrid braking functionality and the way that system feels, the car is very close to how it behaves in real life. So it's so cool to hear him say, like, he spent 8 hours, the day before the race, just hitting that bus stop chicane over and over again until he nailed it. And then he could jump in the car and it handled almost exactly the same way. Like, he could just translate what he learned in the sim, in a commercial sim that everyone else can have access to, and apply it to real life racing. So it's very cool to see that all up and down the grid on all these cars. And next year we're going to have all of the cars, every single one of them is going to be a Storm Gang car. We're getting rid of the Studio 397 cars, which are fine cars, but it's very hard to adjust the different parameters on them to make them so that way that parity is where we want it to be. Like with the Aston Martin, especially, kind of some insight there, like we added weight to it. It's very difficult to adjust the inertia on that. Whereas obviously, with physics, little math here for you, you add weight to something, it's going to increase the inertia. The way the physics engine interprets that, it needs to have those numbers in there to understand exactly how all those variables have been adjusted. We can basically only adjust weight on the Studio 397 cars unless you go through and just, painfully try and eke out exactly what they may have done. But even then, you might end up adjusting numbers that make total sense the way that you think they should, and it'll crash the sim because there's some value that the studio guys have put in there in correlation with some other values that just makes it go bonkers. So we're very proud and very happy to be away from those. It's going to be, like I said, a lot of work in terms of getting the testing right, and a lot of work for me and getting all of the graphical things where they need to be. But we've got it all scheduled out through the end of the year. We're about on pace right now. So we're feeling good, and we hope to have like a really awesome package come into the year. So that way, we go in 2025, everyone's going to have a big grin on their face.
I really can't wait for 2025, and we're not done with 2024. Just hearing you talk about everything behind the scenes makes me really excited. But I do want to circle back to talking about the race today. Specifically, I want to talk about Sector 3 and Hypercars. And I feel like every time we get VWSC out on track, we talk about Hypercars and we talk about a specific sector and we talk about traffic. I have to ask, what are we expecting in terms of Sector 3 and traffic with GT3s and Hypercars?
So you're not wrong. Sector 3 is definitely going to be one of those tight spots where you got to play follow the leader if you get stuck behind. It's a little bit better off because Fuji has, it's a lot of surface area. It's a wide track, at least this rendition of it certainly is. So there's enough room where you can maneuver around, and some of these guys, they've certainly made their intentions obvious, and so you're going to find between some GTs and some of the hypercars, you're not really going to have many issues. They can work it out. And then there are going to be other times when there's, you know, fisticuffs at play and they come up on traffic and things might get a little messier. But I'm also going to say, don't take your eyes off Sector 2 like where I'm going through right now, because even though it seems fairly simple and it's almost a straightaway, you have that kink in there just before you get off into Sector 3. And it can probably catch people out, like if they're not paying attention, or if certain things are happening, or if people find themselves just slightly in a certain situation. You might see some fireworks going off there that are going to impact somebody's race way more than what you would expect.
It's going to be really interesting, especially once, we talk about it every time, but once the lap traffic starts, it never stops for hypercars. Once GT3 start being lapped, they never stop being lapped. And that's what I think is going to be interesting. And Ross, you're out on track, but I'm going to ask one final question. I know you and me talked a little bit before the stream started about practice and about, you know, your confidence level, where you're feeling with this track. Where do we expect to see you with results here?
Probably not terribly great. I'm coming off a 10-mile obstacle run like we were talking about, so, you know, I haven't had any time to really prepare, but, you know, I have a decent setup, and I like the track. It's, you know, kind of straightforward in the way that it's laid out, and, you know, it's got a stable setup. It's not terribly quick, so I'm just hoping to stay consistent, stay out of the other wars that people are having, and who knows, maybe attrition will work in my favor. Maybe we'll get some pop-up showers or something. I do love a wet track, but I don't know, we'll see. I'm just kind of finishing out this season and enjoying to be probably the first driver to hit the 100th anniversary, 100 races with VWSC. Obviously, we had the 100th VWSC race at Goodwood for our historics. So, yeah, I'm going to hit that 100 and feel good about that, and just kind of enjoy all the other racing that I can get.
Basically, what Ross is unofficially announcing is that he's going to take the F1 driver approach, or the NASCAR driver approach, where he does a bunch of races, gets some good results, and then he says, I'm done, and retires to the booth with me.
I don't know how good the results are going to be, but yeah, most of that is about correct.
Well, Ross, I'm going to let you get to it because it looks like we're not too far from getting ready to go here, and I see everybody's putting in some nice little warm-up rounds here. We got a few minutes left to go warm up, but we'll let you go warm up and get going here, Ross. Take it easy, man, and I'm sure I'll talk to you more later.
Yeah, have a good broadcast, guys. Thanks again to JPB and everyone at CMS. This is our 25th anniversary year. We got a lot of great programs going on. If anybody has any racing available for them during the week, I will give a shout out for MNRL and NARS, the North American Racing Series. Tuesday and Thursday, there is a combined series where we're running the classic GT1s and GT2s from 1998. So check for details on that in the Discord if you're interested, and I'll catch you all later.
Awesome. Thanks, Ross.
See you guys.
All right. And with Ross away to run his race and the boss man away, me and Mr. Paul Glover can play for a little bit. Paul, I don't know that this is your first time commentating, but I think it's your first time commentating with me in a very long time.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I think it might be. So, trying to broadcast and commentate at the same time is tricky where R Factor 2 is concerned, but try and do my best.
Yeah, and of course, Ross, I'll carry the heavy lifting for you because you and me talked about it off broadcast about how tricky R Factor 2 can be with streaming and cameras and different things. So we'll try to make sure that you get to give us the best product ever, but it is nice to hear your voice on the other side every once in a while. What are your thoughts for this race today?
Like I was saying before the broadcast, it's a bit of a tricky track. You've kind of just alluded to that with your discussion with Ross as well. It's a track that I have only done a few laps in because I get easily frustrated with it. I struggle to find the flow, and even if I switch camera here and we look at you look at this camera here, you can clearly see how much the circuit drops off. You'll see that there's a hypercar, there's no longer a hypercar, and this is what this track is all about. There's a lot of gradients that you won't necessarily spot from other camera angles, but I think that this one kind of clearly shows you that, yeah, there's at points the track drops up and down, and it makes it hard to see the apexes. So it'll be interesting to see how that's handled, especially when you've got hypercars that catch up on the with the GTs.
Yeah, it's gonna be tricky, and the big thing that I think people forget about is just this is on a mountainside. This isn't necessarily just, you know, a flat track out like Coda was that we were just at a few weeks ago. This is a mountain in Fuji that this track is built on. So it's going to produce some very interesting races and runs, and we have the up, the down, the all the way around that comes through. Of course, we're looking right now all the way down to turn 3 to Coca-Cola corner. And if you look off to the left, we're looking towards 100R, which sweeps around behind the trees we can see. And this is a 16-corner track, and I think it was phrased best. I was watching some track overviews just to refresh my mind on this track, and someone said it best there, and they said, do you want the most difficult, complicated track possible with no flow? Yes, this is your track. So that is where it's at. But let's bring up the starting order. Let's talk about everything. We got one pace lap to go, and then we will be underway because it does look like warm-up is over. And before these 90 minutes get underway, we'll run you down the grid here. Dan Herlock in the Isoda has taken the pole over Dan Kirby in the Porsche 963, Cameron Barker in third place, and Mike Bell in P4. So it's Isoda and Porsche, your top four. The Ferrari of Ben Kesby in fifth, Magnus Dahlgren in the Alpine in P6, Luke Mitchell in seventh, and Mr. Vuder de Bruin in the Peugeot in P8. From there it is Michael Locke in ninth place, Scar Pope in P10, Timon Subic in P11, Eric Monet in P12. From there we're going to be looking at P13, which is going to be your friend Oliver Newman, and then Maximilian Petrovsky in P14. George Angelidis will start his way there in P15 with Luke Goodlife in 16th place. Looking back further, Jerry Chen, Alexander Cerami, and John Mayer and Jason Whited rounds out your top 20. From there, we're going to be looking P21. Eduardo Bonica will bring us up 21st place there in the GT3 pole with Johnny Gutierrez in 22nd. David Junt, 23rd. Eugene Mazur in 24th place. From there, we're going to look at P25. JT Tammy, Jamie Jalecki, P26. Philippe Ducardi in P27. Matt Bice in P28. From there, we're looking P29, Ryan Paulbert Reyes, Pierre Moreno in 30th, Adrian Rice in 31st, Matthew Overton in 32nd. Looking along from there in 33rd place, Stephen Miller, Peter Meyer in P34, Alexander McQuarrie in 35th, and Ross Smith starts his way back in 36th place in the Acura. From there, four more drivers to bring up, Jill Zalon, Stephen Bias, and Carl Struhal. Sorry, three more drivers to bring up with our 39-car grid today. They go around the pace lap here at Fuji. They get ready to run. And from there, once they cross the line, it's 90 minutes. Your orange zone is all the way out of Coca-Cola corner, all the way through 100R, going down into 300R. It's the first 8 corners of this racetrack. So the first half a lap, we should see everybody playing nice and pretty and polite, but from there, the gloves will come off. We're still pacing down through this fun little bit of a third sector, and again, the third sector will start with a Dunlop chicane, go all the way up, hit a double left-hander, and then the hard right-hander of Panasonic, which is where we proceed. And that is where things get action. We come out of Panasonic now. And 90 minutes of Fuji here with the VWSC here at CMS Racing is going to be go just as soon as our pole sitter decides to get underway. And it does look like Dan Herlock is waiting on the flag. He's waiting on the flag. He's waiting on the flag a little bit more here. You see he's holding the inside there at that pit line. The pit line there being separated. He's on the inside of the pit lane line. Is he pitting? He is going to be pitting right off the bat, Dan Herlock. So Dan Kirby will take pole technically right off the start. Dan Kirby crosses the start-finish line, and he is gone. Hypercars are away, and Dan Kirby with a big run on Cameron Barker to start things off. In the bottom right corner of your screen here is going to be our GT3s. And our GT3 is going to be led by Eduardo Benica. Eduardo Benica waiting to get to the line to go. Hypercars on the main center of your screen here. Dan Kirby away with Mike Bell, Cameron Barker, and Kesby back behind. You see Magnus Dahlgren there in 5th place trying to keep up. We're all the way through already. They've gotten down through Coca-Cola Corner. They're coming through 100R now. And the GT3s are just now getting underway. And you can see here very quickly the GT3's going. It's that Aston Martin in the lead of Eduardo Benica with Johnny Gutierrez and the Mustang just behind. They get through turn 1 cleanly there of Daichi, through turn 2 down into Coca-Cola Corner yet again. GT3s are away, Hypercars are away. No hargy-bargy that I can see, and everybody has a nice clean start through the field that I can see.
Yeah, so far so good, Brad. Nothing too chaotic that I've spotted yet either, so pretty clean start, I think we can say.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good. Oh, and there's some sliding going on there. That's not what you want to do early on. That's Mike Bell just kicking the back end of the car out. I think just trying to give a little bit of a show early on here. He's on medium tires, and I think he's just trying to get some heat in those tires. You do have Ben Kesby, and Ben Kesby is a driver that we see do this a lot. He's running, he's running a split axle strategy. Front tires are hard, rear tires are medium, and you know, there's a number of reasons you would do that, but the main thing I can think of is really just the grip and the length of keeping those tires alive. You really want to have those front tires last, and you want a little bit more grip on that rear axle here, as we have that number 40 diving up the inside there of the Alpine, that is Eric Monet going through and diving on the Alpine of Oliver Newman, and it's Eric Monet in a Porsche. There we go. I can tell you what drivers are driving what cars. It's been a long race, and we're only a couple minutes in. I see somebody in the Hypercar AMS had a bit of a background spin there, but it looks like everybody is away. Well, nobody losing their race early as we go through. Battle's still very close early on, but as is tradition in these races, we'll start with some very competitive battles early on. Things will spread out just a little bit here and there, and then it'll compress back in with the last 10 or 15 minutes, and that's where things will get a little bit wild, Paul, as you and me both know.
Indeed. We're going to go to a replay now, mate. Jason Whitehead having a little spin into turn 1.
Jason Whitehead here, watch him. He goes on the brakes, and the car just doesn't like it. And a little bit of a tap there. I don't know who that was he tapped, but it looks like that was the Peugeot of Bradley Sellers, I believe it was. And he gives a little bit of a tap there and gets knocked back. Mr. Dan Kirby up in front, setting a fastest lap that's immediately taken away by Mike Bell, from what I can tell you. So we're continuing to see best lap set in, and I'm surprised that the lap times are as close as they are here at Fuji. Dan Kirby running 127.6, Mike Bell 127.5, and then you go back to the GT3s, and they were running about 137s in qualifying. They're running about 140, 141 here. So we get another replay coming up on our screen here, and this is going to be another little bit of a spin in the Hypercars, and that is just
Jason
a bit of a
again.
snap there. Jason Whitehead, man.
Again. Yeah, not having a great fun. I think he's
Yeah,
just had another moment somewhere as well. It's just flagged up, so I'll go and take a look.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you have one little spin turns to two turns to three, and then it just kind of goes downhill. It's not something anyone really enjoys, and every once in a while you just got to kind of reel it back 5%, but the frustration can build as a driver, especially, you know, when you have some of those silly spins, as I like to call them, where you're on your own, nothing real crazy going on. Magnus Dahlgren here with Ben Kesby This is the battle for 4th place overall, and another replay coming up. I believe this is going to be Jason Whited yet again. It is, and what's happened here, Paul? Another front axle lockup?
Yeah, I just think it must be his brake balance or something, and just had the heavy braking. The rear end of the car is just coming around and saying, "Hi, I want to be at the front rather than be at the back." So yeah, as we can, we're watching the battle here. Dahlgren and is that Kesby? So yeah, I don't know. He can't. Surely he can't have a race of just absolute nightmares. That after that. Oh, is there contact there?
I believe there was contact there. That was Dahlgren and Kesby battling out. I think there was a little bit of contact there going into Coca-Cola Corner. We'll see what happened here in just a moment as we get back going here, and that's going to drop Mr. Magnus Dahlgren all the way down into 9th place overall, 8th place in class. And man, that's it's going to be a long race for these guys if that's even just how side-by-side battling goes. This is going to take me back to Imola, really, is what this is going to take me back to, and we saw how that race ended as we get a replay here. And let's see if there was any contact there between him and the 376 of Kesby as they go through side-by-side, and the car turns like there was contact.
Yeah, it's hard to get an angle on the replay, but yeah, I think it does look like there was contact from the trackside camera angle. I think he just kind of didn't really was given any room, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was an interesting one to see there. There wasn't a lot that could be done. More room needed given, and yeah, it's unfortunate to see. Now you've got Michael Locke here, who is trying to battle out with Kesby. We jump back here to the GT3 battle, and this one's going to be pretty interesting. This is Eugene Majeur, and behind him is, of course, Zalecky, who is not that far off as we watch this battle continue. Look at the GT3s carve through this course. I like watching them carve through, and honestly, I think this is a
isn't he? Look, he's struggling with the rear grip there, which is now put him under immense pressure.
Yeah, you know, right as I go to say the GT3 should be able to handle this course a little bit better for its technicalities and hard handling, I say that, and then of course Majeur now has Zalecky just right for company right behind him there as we watch them go through. We've already had one DNF here today, which I wasn't expecting. We've had Petravsky is showing as a DNF for me in the Isoda and in the Hypercar AM. So one DNF away with just a couple minutes in, and here is your pass. Eugene Majeur getting passed up the inside by Zalecky, and it does look like he'll clear him into turn 1. So turn 1 proving to be a good passing zone as well. I wasn't expecting that. I really thought we'd see a lot of passes through Coca-Cola Corner, but GT3 showing that hard braking at the end of a long straight can just be the traditional way to go. As we continue through 8 minutes into this 90-minute race. Eugene Majeur now down into 6th place there in the Aston Martin GT3. We'll see if he can claw his way back forward here and try to find a higher place in the standings.
I don't think he's going to. I think he's going to find himself under pressure from the 2 cars behind. So he's already kind of dropping off a little bit. And just normally the Aston's one of, people say the Aston's one of the strongest cars in the series, but right here, right now, it doesn't appear to be. You can just see, like, as he hit that curve there, it really unsettled the car, and he's gone deep into a couple of the into the corners, and you can see he's trying to use as much of the track as possible, but it just doesn't look very stable at the moment. Look, he's not able to take a tighter line. The Porsche right behind is now having a proper sniff.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the Aston struggling through there for grip as we see Eugene slide again, but now you got to look behind because the Porsche and the BMW behind are battling as we watch Eugene Majeur go through. That is Pierre Moreno and Ryan Paulbert Reyes that are battling behind. Those are GT3 AMs, and Eugene is a GT3, and now we see Pierre Moreno, who is taking advantage there of the main straight, the straight line speed. He's going to hard brake up the inside, try to get this pass done if he can. Hard on the brakes up the inside. There goes the Porsche, and that is a good run through. The BMW is going to try to follow through. It gets real close, and there's a Hypercar behind for a company that it looks like is starting to get through the lapping process. So we do have Hypercars getting in the mix, coming into Coca-Cola Corner side by side We do have Eugene Major going around with our friend Ryan Paulbert Reyes. Goes through Hypercar around the outside. That's going to be very, very close. There's another Hypercar around the outside. Let's just take it 3 wide through 100R, why don't we, as we go around. Man, Hypercars and patience do not go together.
Yeah, Eugene there probably didn't know where to go at certain points there, because he had cars to his left, cars to the right, and as I predicted, he's fallen back a couple of further positions, and I think, unfortunately for him, I don't think this is going to be a good race for him at the moment. I mean, it might come to him later in the race, but he just doesn't seem to have the pace of the cars around him. So, yeah, interesting, because he's just been passed by 2 GT3 AMs. They're not even in the same class, Brad. So it's not something we're used to seeing.
Yeah, usually the GT3s are very, very class oriented. You don't see a lot of mixed class battling, and I'll tell you right now that this on your screen is Eugene Major with Adrian Rice and Matthew Overton, and that is battles for class position. And a little bit further back, we would see Ross Smith a little bit further back through as we watch them battle and go. Eugene's got a little bit of breathing room behind because Rice and Overton have decided to battle up front. This is where the real action is in Hypercar. We haven't checked in with these guys for a few minutes, but I'll tell you right now, Bell and Kirby, 0.3 of a second separated as they go through. They're carving through this GT3 traffic. Mike Bell was able to get that Isoda ahead of Dan Kirby. Dan Kirby, of course, in the Porsche 963. Dan Kirby, we know, is very strong, very fast. Mike Bell, we know, is very fast there in this. And as I say it, Dan Kirby runs a little. And he gets tapped by a Mustang. Well, that is one way for a race to end and for a challenge to go through. That was rough for Dan Kirby. I hate to say it, but he tried to rejoin and the Mustang was just there. I mean, I don't think that was anything on that Mustang. And I think that Mustang actually was our friend Johnny Gutierrez, if I'm not wrong. So, yeah, I don't think that was... It's unfortunate for Kirby. He'll have to claw his way through, but we know Kirby's fast. He's got 11.7 seconds now he needs to make up as we see Mike Bell getting past Eugene Major and going around here. The lap traffic started within 10 minutes, and, well, it's going to stay like this for the next at least 75, because that's how long we have left in this race. So Kirby goes off. He's there, and he just...
Maybe, I mean, thing is, it takes two to tango and make a move work. And, maybe there is you could say, a bit of an accountability on the GT3 for not having an awareness that he was there. But at the same time, to your point, sometimes the hypercars don't show enough patience for me, and so I put that down as a bit of a racing incident in my book, anyway. Yeah, because it was, when you watch it back, it was Kirby trying to get on the track to get back to the race, and the GT3, I wouldn't have expected someone to be that deep inside there either at that angle. So I can see that as a racing incident through. I do want to take a second and say hello to everybody in YouTube chat here. Mr. Reese, Stacy Scott's Gang, and Bill Hunter. Welcome to you all here in chat. Me and Stacy had a quick chat, and of course, yes, Mr. James Parfit himself is off for the weekend. He's decided to go take a quick breather. He decided that he was tired of hearing my voice. Me and him spend a lot of time together, so he decided that he wanted some time to himself, and, well, I can't blame him. He does, have a family, and I guess the family's more important than me. Somewhere in there, we'll debate that one later. James knows I love him. We get a replay here on screen. Paul, what you bringing me? Yeah, it's a long replay of Stephen Bice, so it's a good battling. Some little bits of contact, as we can see here. So navigating the slower car ahead, the Mustang there. Unfortunately for Stephen, though, it does end up in a bit of a spin. But you can see quite a few of the the car behind also. Was on a bit of a half spin, but just quite a lot of activity going on here. And again, you need to have a bit of an awareness. And there's Eugene ahead, and Stephen touches the grass, and then just sort of comes in and then continues, and then does a 360 for good measures.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to see, and it's it's unfortunate to go through, come back live. this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. We come back to a Coca-Cola corner. What actually happened to Eugene? Because Eugene is just gone. I don't know.
So Stephen Bice obviously went past as he span, but something happened to him. So if we watch him, contact with the hypercar. Yeah, I think the car just snapped. I don't think he did that on purpose, unfortunately for him. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that was on purpose at all. I'm looking through and trying to tell exactly what happened. Stacy brings up a good point though here in YouTube chat. Some of the corners are slow for hypercars, and GT3s can almost pass in some of these corners. That is true.
So here we've got Bradley Sellers, which is a bit of an odd one there, and the braking just... I'm not a fan of the Peugeot, because I'm like, where's the rear wing? Like, where is the rear wing? And I think it always looks unstable to me because it doesn't have a standard rear wing like the other cars do. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know? I feel like it's hindering itself because it hasn't got the usual. They've tried to be clever, and I feel like they've tried to be too clever with the Porsche. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember when I saw the car for the first time, and I was like, I don't like the lack of a rear wing. I understand what they tried to do with it. It's not something I personally would prefer or pick, but it's there. It does its thing. It's a fast car. Don't get me wrong. There is a good chunk of it that's fast, but it's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think they've gone for style over substance.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like somebody will just go and buy something that's got a label name on it, even though it's ugly, but just because they can, you know? And it's like, well, you know, I don't care if it's got a label name. It looks good, it looks good. But anyway, I'm just looking at just trying to bring something to the conversation. I'm just looking at the tyres. Our leader's on mediums. Mr. Kesby's on hards, and he's currently in P3 in the Ferrari.
Yeah, I'm showing Kesby on the split axle. He's got the hard tires on the front, medium on the back. I'm also showing. It looks like
I don't have that information in on my lifetime, and I just have the one. So yeah. So the likes of Bell and Barker, then are they just on the mediums?
Yeah. So Mike Bell, Cameron Barker are on the mediums. You've got Kesby who's on a split axle. Dan Kirby is on mediums. Dan Herlock's on mediums. Timon Subik's on mediums. Michael Locke is on a split axle, and Scar Pope. Alexander Sarama, Jerry Chen. I mean, you've got a few people that are running that split axle strategy, and it mainly seems like it's the Ferraris that always pick to run that split axle strategy. I never really see any of the other manufacturers running that. It seems like it's always Ferraris, with the exception this one time of the Isoda of Scar Pope in the Hypercar AM is running a split axle. But yeah, I have to ask if that's just... Oh, Michael Locke with a big slide there in his Ferrari 499. As I'm talking about the Ferraris, almost a scary rejoin there, but Michael Locke getting back in without not too much of an issue, I'll say. It's a little dangerous there for a second, though. Here's a good replay. This is going to be a Mustang versus... Oh!
It's quite a big hit from a long way back, which is why I decided to show that. So that was Overton that got hit. I don't quite know who the other car was, but there are currently a lot of off tracks. Petrofuki, he's back. I always say his name wrong, so apologies. But there are a lot. Maximilian's just DNF'd again, so he's clearly not having fun today. Yeah, there's a lot. As this race is sort of, how long we've got 1 hour and 11 minutes to go. There's a lot of off tracks that have started appearing up, and I think a lot of that's going to be due to grip must be falling away from people, because it is like you said, and Stacey pointed out in chat. There's a lot of slow corners, and in order to come out of those corners, what are you going to use? You're going to use tyre life because you need the grip to accelerate, right? So it is a tricky track. There's a lot of, as we've seen, and there's a lot of rear end kind of sliding going on as well, Brad. So of course it's gonna have some effect. And I think as the race goes on, normally you would expect the kind of the carnage to sort of settle after the first few laps because people find a rhythm, but so far I don't think we're seeing that.
Yeah, this does not feel like a race that's settled down at all. And I'll tell you right now, a lot of the off tracks is because a lot of it I'm going to guess, I don't have this information right in front of me, but a lot of it I'm going to guess is a little hypercars trying to get around GT3s. And I'm going to guess that another good chunk of it is people just trying to eke out lap time. And one of the things you'll see as we watch these laps continue is you've got to push. And there's a lot of sections of the track you've got to be right on the edge of track limits. And if you're not right on the edge of track limits, you're leaving time out. But the issue is you got to do that consistently for 90 minutes. And that is something that is easier said than done time after time. So we have Eric Monet here, who is trying to have a run on Mr. Mayer and is getting a dive down the inside. And it looks like this is going to be a team battle, so they're not going to make it too hard on each other there in the Hypercar AMs. Monet and Chen battling through. I don't expect them to make things difficult with each other here, as you have Chen, Monet, Mayer, all three together within just a very small gap. And you know, when you look at the Hypercar AM battles, Mistral 410 points against the HRC Acura's 263. They might race a little harder though, because Chen and Mayer are 1 and 2 right now in the Hypercar AM standings, and Mayer's only 3 points behind George, or ahead of George. So they might race a little more, but I would say if you're Eric Monet, you're not going to make it too hard on these two, because they are, of course, trying to get a gap on George in the driver's standings.
Let's get some GT3s on screen, shall we?
Yeah, bring up
enough love at the moment. But it's hard because there's quite a lot of good close battles going on as at the moment.
The GT3s, you know, I said this earlier at the top of the race. This is a track that I feel like it's like Imola. Like when we look at the schedule again, and we look at, you know, Imola, Qatar was a race that was a lot like this. Sao Paulo. This is a track that I think the GT3s really should have strong races at, and they should have very competitive, very fun battles at. We watch JT Tammy here on the main screen in the bottom right. You do have the hypercar battles going through. That is going to be Ben Hesby there with Cameron Barker. That is P2, P3 on your screen in the bottom right as they go through, and they are snaking their way through the GT3 traffic. JT Tammy there in third place in GT3. He's trying to chase down David Junt. Not too far behind him there, but you can also see behind him that he has Johnny Gutierrez in the Mustang. And I tell you what, the Mustangs looked fairly consistent in the GT3 as well. I think all of the cars have looked really good, but I will say, to Ross's point at the top of the broadcast too, when we were talking to him, you can tell the slight differences between the R-Factor 2 cars and the SGS cars. You can tell the minor differences in handling and performance, and I'm really excited to see what the 2025 cars look like whenever all of them are made by SGS, and it's all, you know, tunable the way that Ross and everyone over at Storm Gang want. That's going to be, I think, really interesting to see in the long run, because, you know, as we've talked about, Aston Martin is very, very quick. It's very, very competitive. It's very, very hard to compete with. So I'm curious to see what they do to kind of knock it down a peg.
Oh, you see the bottom right hand of your screen there? Did you see what just happened? Oh, that looked bad.
That looks like a mess.
Yeah. Well, to that, we were watching Subic and Mika Lock. So I think it was Mika that's lost out there. So we'll I'll go and grab a replay of that momentarily.
Yeah, that was a very, very messy moment there in the bottom right. That just right as I stopped talking to catch my breath, I got it.
Yeah, the problem is, I think that the Mustang, by the looks of it, went to make a move and didn't realise the hypercar was there. So, again, I don't think you can really pin it on anybody.
There's a lot of those moments, though, with these tracks and these cars that you really can't pin it there. The Mustang goes through, goes up the inside for a move, and I mean, again, hypercar patience. Me and James go back and forth on this all the time.
Yeah.
About, you know, blue flags and, you know.
Whenever James is around, don't mention blue flags, because he immediately goes and spits feathers. A few of the hypercars are in the pits.
Yeah, we're hitting pit stop window, and I was wondering when, because we were told 20 to 25 minutes, and we're at 25 minutes near exactly. So I was wondering exactly when we were going to see things go through. Stacy pointing out mechanical grip is used a lot in Sector 3. Stacy, you're not wrong. We're seeing it a lot, time and time again, especially through that Sector 3, and it's really making the action close and competitive. But we're seeing a lot of, the flow being used too through Sector 1 and Sector 2, through 100R into 300R, but as soon as you hit turn 10 Dunlop, that's where things just kind of pop off, for lack of better phrase, and get a little bit chaotic for everyone. Down on the bottom right, GT3 battles going through. Up on the top, it is Dan Kirby on your main center screen there, bringing his way around, and I'm wondering when the leader decides to pit and when he decides that he wants to go in. Dan Kirby currently with an 18-second lead to Timon Subic. Mr. Voodoo de Bruin just behind Timon there for second place. He's got GT3s for days he needs to watch out for. He gets through, and I believe this is Dan Kirby into the pits. He's on the inside of the white line, the commit line, and there it is, race leader into the pits. And this, we'll see how long the pit stop is, how it mixes things up.
Yeah, Subic carries on. He hasn't been in yet.
Looks like
But showing 17 laps ago that he was in the pits. So on my end, so I'm not sure how accurate that is. We might have been in and we missed it. So yeah.
I'm not sure. I know Mike Bell's been in, Ben Kesby's been in, Cameron Barker's been in, Dan Herlock, Magnus Dahlgren, Scar Pope in the AMs. George Angelidis currently second place overall in the Hypercar AMs. He has not pit yet, so he is running through. Look at the bottom right there. The GT3 battle continues on yet again. Aston Martin versus Acura. This is Ross Smith putting on a show for a man who said he wasn't very confident with where he was going to be at today. He is he's putting on some work here, holding back an Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's Matthew Overton behind. That's who we saw. We saw Matthew unfortunately get collected in T1 a few laps ago. So he's on a bit of a recovery drive from that. Oh, there's a hypercar facing the wrong way there.
And that's one of the Bice brothers that's there. So what has happened there? I have a feeling that is GT3 versus Hypercar action, and it looks like one of the Bice brothers in the Corvette losing out today. Yeah, that's a unfortunate moment as they go through and around, and Ross Smith still on the defensive drive
Race
here
leader
with
pits.
Matthew Overton.
Timon is pitting. What does George do? That's the question. What is George doing? He carries on.
George is playing the long game, it looks like, holding on to fuel, and
he's leading the whole thing now. He is our race leader.
George.
Yeah, George. Don't sound surprised. Yeah.
I mean, it's George leading overall. How long? I feel like he stayed out this lap just so he could say he's leading overall for one lap.
Yeah, just leading one lap. He'll come in straight there. The edge. Yeah, probably right.
So, but yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Hypercar AM of George Angelidis is leading overall at the moment. I feel like we're watching one of the historic races where we see things mixed up really, really hard. And of course, in Hypercar or in the historic series, you never know what class is actually going to win because it mixes up race to race. And I feel like we're in one of those little moments now
Ross.
in the
He's
modern.
lapping Ross. Careful now, George.
I'm enjoying this. I'm just enjoying seeing George in the lead overall for the moment, even if I know it's just for one, maybe 2 laps. But it does beg the question, though, what is George's strategy? If he's going to run this long, what is going to be his long strategy? Because this is 30 minutes he's ran through. So you got to think, if he's going to run 30 minutes, if he pits now, he should be able to go at least another 30. And then can he make it to the end?
I don't know. That's a good question. Listen, I'm trying to. The problem is I'm trying to do replays of. I can't think about strategy. I don't have brain capacity, so that's all on you today. you need to kind of like, I don't know, work it out yourself.
All right, so let's do the math, and I'm going to rely on YouTube chat to correct me if I'm wrong here. Of course, Mr. Reese is in YouTube chat. He's our inside pit reporter. He may be able to tell me what's going on through. So George goes 30 minutes. So we know George can go 30 minutes. He's going to go another 30, I would assume, which will get us down to under 30 minutes to go now. So by the time George comes back out on that second pit stop, we're under 30 minutes to go. Is George about to pull off the upset of the century in strategy? Because it sure, by golly, looks like it, because everyone else ran 20 to 25 minutes, and George stretched it out to 30. George Angelides, I'm keeping my eyes on you this race. And yeah, I probably just pulled a commentator curse, but we'll keep our eyes on it as it stands. Mike Bell now back in his rightful lead as George Angelides' pit, and Mike Bell now in the lead there in the Minnesota with the Ferrari 499 of Ben Kesby behind. Cameron Barker in third place, 5 seconds back. Dan Kirby another 8 seconds behind that. So top four going through.
We've also got a battle for P1 in GT3. So Eduardo Benica is leading the way in the GT3s, and JB Junt is just behind, half a second back. So last time around, David was just was over a second quicker. So
you know what's really interesting is that we always talk about how the races will hit that middle period where the drivers settle into a run. There's no big battles going on, nothing crazy. We're 30 minutes into a 90-minute race that has yet to happen. We have yet to see anyone settle in. Oh, there's a big slide from Ben Kesby. And how Ben Kesby caught that, I cannot give you an answer. But that is a big slide that he manages to recover, but he loses about 0.6 of a second from that slide. Down in the bottom right, Eduardo Benica, David Junt continuing to battle. That gap is about 0.9 of a second. But again, Eduardo and David swapping lap times back and forth, running very similar times, but David slower in the middle sector by about half a second there. And that battle is going to settle through. And of course, the GT3s all still need to pit. As far as I can see, we've had a couple of GT3s make their stop. Peter Meyer, Joe Zalon have made pit stops, and Stephen Bice has been in, Pierre Moreno has been in. We still need to see a lot more of those GT3s come through for pit stops. And what will their strategy be? That's a good $1 million question that I don't have an answer to. Mike Bell continues to lead here as we go around with the hypercars.
Yeah, he continues to lead. But Daniel Kirby, we saw have a bit of an incident earlier in the race. He was fastest around last time, but since then Mike Bell's gone over the line. So we've got Mike Bell in the 129s, Ben Kesby there in the over a second slower than Mike Bell. Cameron Barker in the 129s as well, and Dan Kirby in the low 130s. So Scar Pope, who's currently in P7 overall, but leading the Hypercar AMS, also in the low 130s, so showing some real pace at the moment. We've got a battle between Oliver Newman and Luke Mitchell currently underway. We'll switch to that.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here with Mr. Zoomin Newman, as I know our friend Becky Ely has called him. Oliver Zoomin Newman there in 9th place running through. And I'm curious to see how this battle ends up with Mitchell there. Oliver Newman going through the inside, Mitchell the outside. We have his onboard there in the bottom right, and we see through, and Newman loses the position there to Luke Mitchell. If for the moment, we'll see here if Oliver can get any sort of a fight there. Newman's going to be trying to look around. We run through Coca-Cola corner very quickly, and I think that's one of our sources of off-tracks right there, judging by how Oliver Newman took that corner and came out. Now he runs very wide. We got to cut back over, cut the hard left through turn 6 and 7, and now we run down towards 300R, towards Dunlop chicane. Hard right-hander here, and then here is 300R as it stands down through towards Dunlop. And then here is Dunlop. Deep on the brakes we go. And again, this is just so slow, so technical. And the hypercars, you got to be careful not to do what Oliver Newman just did and go a little too far off the track there, because once you do that, you lose all your momentum. You can bottom out the car. And it's sayonara, adios, see you later. Through 14, through 15 here. Double apex. And then bring it back around one more time. Hard to the right. for turn 16 Panasonic, and then it's down the main straight. You can see the different lines that they're taking through. Everybody's got a slightly different line that they're taking, but it all ends up in a very similar result, and that is your lap around here in Fuji as we continue through. 55 minutes to go. We've gotten 30 minutes down. We're under 60 minutes to go. And
few GT3s
more
down the pitch. You can see a few leaving there. Unfortunately for Marino, he's got a penalty, I think, for speeding in the pit lane.
Oh, that actually stinks. It's one of those things that it's frustrating and it's annoying because it's almost avoidable. But drivers are going to push really hard to get the fastest pit stop they can, and even if you're a 10th over, you're still over, and it gets, the hard hammer comes down. Dan Kirby here in 4th place, trying to hold off Dan Herlock in 5th place, and this battle is there by just under a second. These two are separated as we go down the main straight. Slipstream, really the only place you're going to see Slipstream come into effect is down the main straight, and I don't know, it doesn't feel as strong here as it has been at some of our other tracks we visited, but it is something that you have to be aware of as we see Dan Kirby here trying to make a move, get around the GT3, and now Dan Herlock's going to follow through as well. And did Dan Kirby lose time to the GT3? He sure did. He lost about half a second there as we go through. Dan Herlock still trying to hold on as best as he can. Dan Herlock trying to get up into 4th place here. Dan Kirby trying to hold on to 4th place. 10 seconds separates these two, though, to the top 3. And that is a very big amount of time that they need to make up.
Yeah, it's close between Bell and Kesby. They're doing very similar lap times. Well, last time around they did. I'm making a statement like I've been watching every single lap time, but that would be incorrect of me to make that statement. So I'm going to correct myself. But Kesby was ever so slightly faster. So the gaps are around about the 2-second mark at the moment, but as you say, we're watching Kirby and Herlock. This is one of the closest battle currently in the hypercars for us. Anyway. And the gaps at the GT3s have kind of opened up a little bit following the pit stops. We often see this, don't we? There's close battles, then the pit stops happen, and it kind of spreads things, but then the pit stops will kind of bring everybody together again later in the race. Adrian Rice, another man with a penalty as he left the pits. So again, for him. So unfortunate. We've seen a couple of those during the pit stops.
Yeah, and again, those penalties are frustrating because they are avoidable. It's something that on the driver, it's just a little bit of concentration difference that sometimes can make that difference in the speeding in the pit lane or not penalty. If you're looking at your GT3s right now, JT Tammy into the pits, I was getting ready to say he still needs to pit, and so does Ross Smith, but at the moment, once they come around, I believe Ross Smith will be your overall leader if he decides to stay up this time, as we continue to watch Dan Kirby and Dan Herlock battle through, and Ross Smith is in the pits. He's not going to take that lap lead as he's in. Eduardo Benica will be your leader in the GT3s once he gets his way around. Mr. Reese in YouTube chat points out George trying to save one pit stop. You're very, very, very gutsy decision from Ross.
Currently P3 in class, isn't he? So he's 7 seconds behind the car ahead. He's 40 seconds behind Joey Chen.
Well, if he does save the pit stop, though, he's going to save that 40 seconds, will he not?
I don't know. I'll be honest. I've been trying to play around with my own live timing, but it keeps crashing here for some reason. I've got an application that I use, and it's not happy with me today for some reason. Oh, here we go. I don't know. Well, yeah, I guess he will. The lap times of, the stop times are around about 6. They range from 60 to 86 seconds by the looks of it. So. Again, different fuel loads. We don't know how much fuel people are taking on, which tends to be what slows down your pit stops there. So, yeah. I don't know. Interesting. The problem is, I think he will, but he can't let the gap open up. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's. Of course, you know what I'm saying, but.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
He's got to keep it under 60 seconds, that gap, realistically. But last time round, he was like a hundredth of a second slower than Jerry Chen. Scar Pope, he was, yeah, he could be on for P2. I think P1's out of reach. It's just two bigger gaps going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and the gap continues to open up too. The more you look at it, the more that gap opens up.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it kind of concertinas sometimes. It closes down. I mean, some of the interval gaps, you know, they go up and down so regularly when you're looking at the live timing. So, yeah, here's a battle for you: Oliver Newman and Alexander Saraimi. Is that how you pronounce that?
It is. Alexander Saraimi, Oliver Newman, and this is going to be a good battle. This is going to be a good one here, because this is, of course, an Alpine versus a Ferrari, and I do enjoy seeing the different classes battle, the different cars run. 50 minutes remaining as it sits. And then, while we watch this battle, Stacy in YouTube chat has pointed out that the main key for the GT3s is tire management, because even on lean mode, tires wear the same, and that is very, very true, and it's something that, you know, you've got to consider. And again, with a lot of these low-speed corners and very hard hairpins, you got to watch. Oliver Newman absolutely putting the pedal down here.
That's a rocket.
Yeah, what does he fueling that car with? What is he fueling that Alpine with? Because the Alpine has a lot of speed there from Oliver Newman. It takes off very quickly.
I think he got caught out on the brakes there a little bit, and he had to take avoided action. So, yeah, I don't think he was expecting the car ahead to be Oliver Newman to be that slow as they reach the apex.
Yeah, what's interesting too is actually Alexander there in P12 behind him had a faster top speed down the main straight. Oliver Newman 199 miles an hour, Alexander 202, but it's that takeoff from the stop out of the corner that's really helping Oliver defend right now in that Alpine. He's really able to give it a bit more and get a bit more of a run, and you can see it now as we head through 300R that he's able to pull that little bit of a gap on Alexander. So if Alexander wants to get that pass done, he's got to do it through turn one, and then the big question will be, can he hold it? Because it seems like that Alpine is just, it's connecting better, and as I say it, there's a wiggle. So it just seems overall it connects better, and it's got a bit better handling here on track. Every time I go to say something, there's a wiggle.
Yes, yes. Ross just got past Matthew Overton there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
And this lines up with this battle with Oliver Newman. So as Oliver Newman goes by with Alexander not far in tow, you got Ross here who is going to be running through and holding on, and continue to watch this action go around here with plenty of time left to go. We're nearing half race distance, 2 minutes to half race distance, and this is really where the drivers are going to be locking in, locking down, and saying, all right, now I've got to move forward. I've got to get more positions. I've got to get more time. And this is, again, another big old group of GT3 hypercars mixing it up. And this is the point where, depending on where your favorite driver is, you might want to hide your eyes. You might want to avert your look for half a second. It seems like every time we get big pods of cars like this together, something goes astray.
We just had a DNF, unfortunately. Oh, there was nearly contact there.
Oh, I said it, watch your eyes. And our DNF is Philippe Ducardi in the Hypercar AMS and the Acura ARX. So Philippe is out at half race distance through. We see here Timon Suvic making his way up the inside. We see the switch back from Ross going around and through and out, and Ross just trying to keep it on the track. The Hypercar saying, hey, we're in Sector 3, let me through. I need to go. I got to go. We're still in the middle of a battle here. And Timon Suvic making his way through very, very well. And right behind Timon Suvic is Bradley Sellers in that Peugeot 9x8. Gets his way through. Nice and pretty, doesn't take anyone out. And there is our race leader overall, Mike Bell. And just behind him is Ben Kesby yet again. So Ben Kesby has closed that gap down to half a second. And they are going to just continue to duke it out. Can they keep this up for 45 minutes, though, is the million-dollar question. And the answer to that is, well, one of them's got to win.
Well, that's gone quick. I didn't realise it was only 45 minutes. That's gone unbelievably quick. That has. Yeah, there's a lot of action, isn't there? I mean, I think it kind of, the twisty nature of this track and it's kind of sort of playing its part, isn't it? today because it's not. Oh, he's sliding into T1 there. Jeez. That won't be doing his tyres any good.
I think the hypercars, the tires are genuinely gone on them. If they didn't take tires that first stop, the tires are gone. So I'm going to assume that tires are probably in the mix for these guys at their next pit stops, which should be coming fairly soon, I would think, here. As we hit this half race distance. So, and as I say it,
he's not had a fun race today, Mr. Overton.
he has not at all.
And he's now just made it worse by getting a penalty.
Again, the things you want to try to watch, and sometimes.
Well, it's like a snowball, isn't it? So, yeah.
It is, and I feel bad for drivers because, and anyone who's done any sort of sim racing and any simulator, I don't care what it is, if it's R Factor, if it's iRacing, if it's the Formula One games, which it's more of an arcade game than simulator, but I digress. Whatever your preference of racing game is, everyone's had that moment where they have one little mistake that just snowballs into the worst race you've ever had. Everyone has done that at least once, and it's unfortunate, but everyone has that one race that it happens. And unfortunately, it seems like right now for Matthew Overton, this is that race for him. This is that race where it's gone from bad to worse over and over again. I mean, and there's not a lot you can do besides just kind of muscle through and make it work and be ready for the next one, which again is on the 28th of September. So in 3 weeks' time.
Have a little battle. But I think Magnus got past there.
I believe he did, and then of course Mr. De Bruin is just right on the back there in the Peugeot and doesn't seem too bad off trying to take on Magnus Dahlgren in the Alpine. I know we talked about not liking the lack of a rear wing, but especially through the corners, it seems like it's holding on fairly okay. We jump back in with Oliver Newman here, who is trying to make a run and is doing well with not Timon Subic, I'm sorry. No, that's Alexander. There we go. Oliver Newman and Alexander are the ones battling out on your screen as they continue along. Alexander trying to go through, and Oliver Newman will be back into P11. These two have swapped positions several times. We jump back up front a little bit here because this is Mr. Wouter de Bruin, who is trying to hold off Scar Pope. Scar Pope, your Hypercar AM leader, there just behind in the Isoda, who is actually very, very quick, is faster than Mr. Wouter de Bruin last lap by 4/10. So Scar Pope very, very fast in that Hypercar AM class and is putting a lot of pressure on even the Hypercar Pros. Might be on for a top 5 finish if he can get his way up here, and possibly even more if he has the pace. But as I say it, Scar Pope into the pits for his second pit stop. Mr. Wouter de Bruin continues on, and Magnus Dahlgren continues on as well.
Scar Pope's in the pits. Yeah, is that what you just said?
Yes.
Okay, wasn't listening. Mike Bell has opened up the gap between him and Kesby. Quite interesting.
Have you noticed how... I know that Mike Bell is driving in a Soda here, but he's acting like he's driving a Subaru WRX in Rallycross. Half the time I feel like we look at him, he's kicking the rear end out and around, and it feels like he's drifting the corners more than he's driving the corners. It's kind of interesting to see what he's doing with that Isoda and how it's working.
Is he coming in? I think he might be.
Yep, he's in the commit line, so he should be. There we go. Have a clean pit stop. Have a clean entry. He does. Ben Kesby to the lead here. Now Ben Kesby's got to get pedal to the metal and get a little bit of room. He might be able to pull off an overcut if he can get away with it. We'll see what Ben Kesby has left in the split axle strategy. He's got hard tires on front, mediums on the rear. I'd say the mediums are about dead, but the hard tires are probably just as gone as everyone else's.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this works. You normally say the undercut is the strongest strategy. Especially, I can imagine around here as well, because you need that mechanical grip from the tyres.
Yeah, I would think we'll see what happens. I'm really interested to see George Angelita's strategy, because every hypercar should have one more pit stop from here that's pitting right now with 41 minutes to go. Everyone that's pitting now has one more stop, but of course, remember, George took it 30 minutes. So George Angelitas needs to go another 10 and a half minutes before he pits again for his strategy to make sense. Somebody, aka Mr. Reese, in YouTube chat, will he make it 10 and a half more minutes?
What's going on with the sound of my other feed? So apologies, it doesn't sound quite right. I'm not quite sure what the devil's going on there.
I could not tell you, my friend. I do not know myself. Ben Kesby's in. See, there's a reason that I leave all of the fun stream things to you, Paul, because I do not know anything about it on R Factor. I can stream iRacing, but I can't stream R Factor. Kesby's in here. Dan Kirby's now up to the lead. Cameron Barker is in. That will relegate second place to possibly Wouter de Bruin if he doesn't pit this time around. I'm looking to see if he comes in, but Dan Kirby is out. He's going. What sort of a lead will he have is the big question. Looks like a pretty good one, honestly, as we see him come around. It seems like he has pulled off a very good gap, actually. Sorry, not Dan Kirby. Wow. Okay, Dan Kirby still needs to pit.
It does.
Can you tell it's been a long day for me and it's only 3 p.m. Dan Kirby needs to pit. Wouter de Bruin needs to pit. Ben Kesby is in third place, so as it stands, Ben Kesby could possibly have the hypercar lead with Cameron Barker in fourth place there, 6 seconds back. So that is an interesting turn of events as they stand. Mike Bell is in fifth place. Timon Subic is in sixth. We'll see how that battle shapes up as we continue to watch hypercar pit stops go through. GT3s have not started their next set of pit stops. Wouldn't anticipate them starting for at least another 8 or 9 minutes. And of course, George Angelitas needs to make it another 8 or 9 minutes for his strategy to work. As it stands, George Angelitas is in the lead and is opening up the lead as Scar Pope has done his second pit stop here. And we'll see if George Angelitas is able to hold on. Here's Dan Kirby running through and trying to hold on. George Angelitas, again, in the lead. Not by much, though. And he needs to get some more time going. He's got to hold for another... You know, looking at it, he might be better off than we think. Because you got to think, if everyone's got to do one more pit...
Yeah. Wait, you might be right, because he's... yeah, you might. He might just do it. Might he? He might just do it. You're trying to work.
I'm gonna keep that.
You're trying to work it out. That's why you've got sign on me, right?
Yeah. I'm just doing some quick math in my head.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the thing is, so here's the issue for George, is that George is running in the 130s. He's running a second and a half or more slower than Scar Pope.
He did a 131 on that lap.
And I'm seeing 128s from Scar Pope. 128.5, 128.6.
Yeah. He's running well though, you know, all things considered, George. It's probably been one of his better races.
Yeah, this has been a very good race for George. Even if George gets second, it's a very good race.
Just giving him the, commentator's curse. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pull out the JP Broadcasting commentator's curse disclaimer. Please don't make me do that, Paul. Oh, I'd have to go find that disclaimer first because that disclaimer was said. I don't even remember where it was I said that, but because I got called out for a commentator's curse one time here at JP Broadcasting, and I said, "Hey, yeah, no, that doesn't actually exist. We don't believe in that." And then there was a very good clip of me saying that I don't believe in that, and then me precisely doing that. So,
right.
Yeah, with that being said,
Double standards, I think you call that, right?
No, it's just the beliefs. No double standards here. No.
No, clearly not. No, you'd never do that.
Yeah, we can't have double standards here. It doesn't work.
Clearly. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
So
Thanks.
Scar, obviously Scar has pitted, so he has just set a lap that's almost a second quicker than George, and we're currently looking at. So Scar is now 3 seconds behind, which, if you think about it, yeah, if Scar's got to pit once more, then you could say that this strategy is working, because George has got a pit stop on him, kind of. But yeah, it's what he wants is he wants to be able to remain ahead of Scar before he pits, really, to really give himself that opportunity to make the strategy work. But also,
well, and here
I don't know how long. So again, I've been having some technical issues. So normally I'd be able to tell you how long the pit stop was there, but it's just it's been a pain in the things have been a pain in the bum, shall we say. So I'm not sure how long the pit stop was for Scar Pope that time around, unless you have it in front of you. So
I do not.
Okay, well, you're no good to me, are you? Blimey, one job. But yeah, so it's because I'm guessing, because that might have been because if we think that the hypercars have stayed on their first set of tyres, so then the gap actually needed might be longer, because you've got to take the tyre change into account. I don't know. Just a thought.
I see what you're saying, yeah. And I do want to point out, though,
Brain hurts.
George is not the only one running the strategy either. I don't know if we've caught onto that, but his teammate Jason is running the strategy as well. But Jason is running about 3 seconds a lap slower than George is, trying to conserve the same amount of fuel. So I don't think George is the only person trying to make it one more stop to the end. I think his teammate Jason is trying to do it as well. Jason whited down in P5. We'll see if he's able to hold on to that. But George is really, really trying to pull a masterclass in strategy off. And if he does it, again, it's going to be the upset. I think the big thing he's going to have to do is hold Scarpope back. If Scarpope gets up to the back of George, he's got to make it super difficult for Scarpope to pass. He's got to really, really be a problem. I don't know. It's a big ask. It's not impossible. It's just a very big ask that George has here. We'll see how much longer George goes. He's got to go at least 2 more laps on this fuel run to get down to the 30-minute marker. Really, he needs to go under the 30 minutes before he goes in the pit lane.
Yeah, the Scar's now got that gap down to just under 2 seconds. Continuing to, but he's going to, because he's got fresh tyres. He's got nice shiny boots.
Yeah, we can see here George trying to make his way through GT3 traffic. Scar is just off the back edge of your screen there on the main screen. In the bottom right, we continue on with, I believe that is going to be the battle.
And Alexander Sarami.
That is the battle for P13 overall, and they continue to go through. We've seen this battle kind of stick around for a while between Alexander Sarami and Bradley Sellers. They have not let things go at all. They've been just glued to the back of each other, continuing through lap after lap. It's been close. I haven't seen any huge dives or anything crazy, but they've kept it right on the back of each other all the way through here. And as we are about to hit 30 minutes to go, this is the point, Paul, I talk about it every time we have these 90-minute races or these 2-hour races. You get within 30 minutes, and that's where you've got to flip the switch. You've got to really start to push a little bit more. You've got to start going through. George Angelides, you've got to defend from Scarpope like nobody's business if you're listening to the stream in the background. So hopefully George isn't listening to the stream and driving, but if he is, hey, you got Scarpope coming up behind you. Be ready, buddy. That's all I can give him.
Wouldn't recommend doing that, because that's, get distracted. But yeah. Bill Hunter said in YouTube chat, too long to replace tyres.
Yeah, that. See, that's the thing too with these races is Scar Pope is coming up on George. I'm gonna hold my thought for a second. Scar to the inside, George to the outside, and George doesn't make it too difficult for him. I think George is looking at long picture here of conservation. George knows he still needs to pit. Scar has pit already for the second time. Scar's gonna have to pit one more time. He cannot make it to the end unless Scar were to save like nobody's business, which I don't think he's gonna do. I think he's gonna try to drive the wheels off of it, but George is looking very, very well as a contender for the win in Hypercar AMS. We'll see what happens for him and where that one ends. I'm looking through, I'm trying to see any other big moments. Luke Mitchell has the fastest lap in the Hypercars. And also in our bottom right, somebody just went way off there and ran through.
I think that might have been Maximilian.
Yeah, that was a...
He's had an off track come up on my screen.
Yeah, that was a big run for him, and currently he is sitting P39, so he is in last place there with Philippe Ducardi, the 40th car with a DNF. So unfortunate for him to be in the position he's in. Again, sometimes you just have those races, you have those days, and that is just where things kind of end up. We continue through. George Angelides, it looks like, is committing to the pit lane here, and he is in. George Angelides is in, and who is that right behind him that's in? There's somebody following him through, and I don't believe... I think that is Jason Whited that's followed him through. So George Angelides and Jason Whited both on the same strategy here. They are pitting in. We've gotten under the 30-minute mark. It's only just 29 minutes left to go here as it stands, and they are into the pit lane for what I expect to be their final stop here. We'll see how that plays out for them. Again, we expect all the other Hypercar AMs to have to make another pit stop except for them. We'll see how that plays out here at the end. 29 minutes to go. Ben Kesby is your leader currently as it sits. Cameron Barker in second place, Mike Bell in P3, Dan Kirby in fourth, and Dan Herlock in P5 here with your top 5 Hypercars. Scar Pope leading the Hypercar AMs. You've got David Junt leading JT Tammy for the GT3s. That gap 5.2 seconds currently. And then GT3 AMs, it is Ryan Paulbert Reyes currently leading Matthew Bice and Alexander McQuarrie. So plenty of battles left to finish up. Plenty of battles left to find. We're under 30 minutes here, Paul, and this is where I'm expecting all of these drivers to really start pushing. We're going to start seeing a lot of the battles come back together. We're going to start seeing, I think, a little bit more chaos as it continues.
I find it interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but every time that George goes into T1, his fronts stop rotating. I don't know if you clocked that. Even just coming out the pits there, his fronts appear to stop rotating. So clearly locking up the front. I've not spotted it on any other car as of yet, but that's not to say that it's not. It just so happens I was spotted it on George. So he's done his pit stop. So he's got John Mayer ahead of him, 16 seconds up the road now, and then Jerry Chen is 20 seconds up the road from John Mayer. But let's see if he can do it. Let's see if he can get a P2.
I think he can. I do really think that George Angelides is setting himself up for a very, very good run. We should start seeing GT3s make their second and final pit stop. It looks like Eduardo Benica has been in, Gilles Lalonde is in, Pierre Moreno is in the GT3 AM. So we should start to see the GT3 cars making their final pit stops here with 26 minutes to go now. As it stands up front, Barker and Bell battling as it sits. They've got 7.5 seconds to get back up to Kesby. Kesby has found himself in a very good position there for the lead overall. And as we get another replay here, and what has happened here, Paul?
This is Kesby into T1.
I said his name.
Well, yeah, I mean, he'd already had the off track by the time he said his name, but yes.
You know,
it's like you said his name, and then I was like, oh, he's had an off track. Well, no, I spotted he had an off track first. But anyway, here's the battle for P2.
Mike Bell and Barker here running through. Really what these two need to do is they need to be trying to get their way up to Kesby. They need to find that 7.5 seconds if they can. But yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how these two go. Down the main straight they go, and look at that. Mike Bell right on the back of Cameron Barker. He's going to be side by side. They go. Watch the GT3 car. Oh, that's one of the Bice brothers. That they go through and get their way around. I think that was one of the Bice brothers. I could be wrong with that. Actually, that was Stephen Miller. Correct me for that. As they go through hard on the brakes. Mike Bell now behind Cameron Barker. And they will continue on through turn 1. They go around. We're going to go through Coca-Cola Corner yet again. And now we're down into the hard sweeping right-hander of 100R. Again, I love 100R. And I do think 100R is a fun little corner on this track now through turn 6 and 7. Again, holding on. Look at the slide from Mike Bell. Mike Bell trying to hold on to it. Gets his way through. Nothing too crazy. He's trying to chase down Cameron Barker. Penalty for one of the Bice brothers as we go around and continue. I'm not sure which Bice brother that is, but it is one of the Bices. Oh, side-by-side contact there between Bell and Barker as they continue on. And now they hold on to it. Little bit of a tap there of Bell getting back around Barker. He gets his way through, but the gap to Kesby has opened up to 8.5 seconds now. Continues to open. They lap a hypercar. They're going to lap a GT3. And now Mike Bell and Barker need to really focus on getting their way forward here if they can.
Yeah, good little bit of a battle there. Like you say, nearly a close coming together. I've got a replay for you. I'll bring that up.
I love the replays.
It's
Who is this?
Luke Mitchell and a Porsche. I'm not sure who's in the Porsche.
Let's see that Porsche. I can try to tell you.
A little bit of contact there.
Nah.
So, nothing too bad. Could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, that's the thing too here. Now that things are really spread out, you don't have the pockets of GT3s that the hypercars have to go through. It's a couple at a time, and it makes it a lot easier for them to go through. We get another replay coming up here, and who is this one here, Paul? This is going to be
Jason Whitehead.
Jason, what have you done, buddy? Facing the wrong way, waiting on room to get his car around, sends it to the grass.
Yeah, I said sensible that.
Yep.
A lot of people would have just gone driving, tried to spin around onto the black stuff. So yeah, he used the grass to good effect there.
Yeah,
Very
that's the
sensible
thing.
approach. It's not often that I give people praise for being sensible. So take it, Jason. Take it.
I mean, yeah, that was a very sensible move. I'm very glad he did that, too, because, as you said, most drivers you see would have just, dumped the clutch and sent it around onto the racing line, and then it would have had a 27-car pile up.
Yeah, that's it. We did see a lot of cars go past while he was off the track. So I wonder if Mr. Cameron Barker is going to catch Mike Bell based on the lap times. No, that's a shame.
Yeah, that's opened up that battle quite a bit there.
Again, the GT3s are rather spread out. But let's go and have a look. We haven't really looked at Alexander, have we?
We have not looked at Alexander McQuarrie running P4.
No, we haven't at all. Yeah, they had a pretty quiet race, I think. I haven't seen any off tracks that I've spotted anyway. No, hasn't been shown any. Oh, Gilles Lalonde's just DNF'd.
Oh.
Sad times. So yeah, Steve. I mean, we haven't even looked at Stephen Miller, have we? I think we might have done briefly, but he's leading the GT3 AMS currently. And he's got Ryan Paulbert Reyes, 11 seconds behind in P2. As Eugene Mazur goes into the pits. And then we've got Carl Strahal in P3. I'm probably butchering their name, but apologies.
I think that's right.
Carnage behind. Oh, God.
What in the world was that behind?
It looked like there was going to be carnage, but they managed to make it through. So yeah, there's a few of the GT3s have been into the pits.
Oh, Carl, watch out behind you, buddy. And good run there from the outside on Carl. Yeah, I think we're hitting those final pit stops. I did notice that, I think Chen.
So that's Suvik that's having those little wobbles. So he's battling with meticulously ahead there.
Yeah, and this is going to be the battle for them. They are currently running P10, P11, or P9, P10 in class, P10, P11 overall. Because again, Scar Pope is up in the mix, and Michael Locke runs off there, and that's just going to open the door for Timon Suvik to run his way around.
It's such a minimal contact with the grass, but it really affects the pace of the car. So he'll be hoping he can get that back.
The hypercars are really, really picky. If you get even a millimeter offline, it can severely compromise the lap. The hypercars, I find you've got to be very, very on the ball with the whole time, and I think that's what makes them so fun, but also so challenging. Is we've now ticked under the 20-minute timer. Here comes another replay of a moment, and this is
This is Maximilian. He's at a moment. I think he just underestimated the slowdown from the car ahead and slammed on the brakes, which really unsettled the car, unfortunately. Jules Lalonde appears to be back. So, yes, Jules Lalonde has just exited the pits. So, following the DNF is back in the race.
good. I'm glad to hear that. It seems like, something that could be recovered from very quickly. So, very glad to see Jules Lalonde back out and running as we go.
I asked a question a couple of laps ago. Can Cameron Barker catch Mike Bell? The answer might be yes.
He's not too far off. He's second and a half off now.
Yeah,
that's
come down. Yeah, that's come down. And I think things like this are helping Cameron because Mike's just getting a little bit held up here.
Yeah, good move around. The Porsche gets out of the way. Settle it in, and now Mike Bell's really got to take off there in the Isotta if he can, and that's going to be, I think that's the big question, is can he?
Can he? Well, there's three GT3s ahead here, so as we're riding on board with Cameron Barker in the bottom right of your screen.
I mean, it's going to be close, I can tell you that much.
18 minutes left. Where's that gone?
Yeah, it's this 90-minute race has flown by pretty quick. I'm not gonna lie. For a 90-minute race,
because you're commentating with me, have I improved things for you?
well, you see,
silence. Thanks.
No.
Brian.
No. Here's the thing. Let's be honest. You and me both know James is gonna watch this back, and if I say yes, you're better than James Parfit, James is gonna fire me. If I say no, you're not better than James Parfit, you're gonna be upset. So here's what I will say. I'm gonna play.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play the politically correct answer. Everyone has their own characteristics, and some of them make races more fun than
That's not what I was
others.
angling for. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I think you're. Yeah.
I will tell you right now, you're
there's a hypercar that's off the track there. I think that was. I think that was. I don't know who that was actually. I'll have to go and have a look. Might have been Luke Goodlife, I think. No. Yeah, as we entered T1 on board with Cameron Barker. I can see Magnus Dahlgren and Luke Mitchell are relatively close together at the moment in the hypercars. George Adelides is only 12 seconds back from John Mayo, who's currently in P2 in the hypercar AMS. He wasn't much quicker last time around, but I don't. So he's got past Jerry Chen at some point, hasn't he? Because Jerry was ahead, right?
Yep.
George was in P4. So, oh hello, Mike Bell's into the pits.
Yeah, we're gonna start seeing those final pit stops here from hypercars.
Blimey. So I think George has got P2 here. Boy, he might have P1. He might surprise us. Well, John Mayer is 33 seconds back from Scar Pope. So George is then, around about 45-ish seconds back from the race leader, the class leader. So there we go. Mike's just done a splash and dash. He's already on the way. He's moving.
Yeah, Mike's just gonna get enough there to go. Ben Casby and still in the lead here as it stands. He's had a very, very good race and a very smooth race.
What happened to Cameron? He's nearly 10 seconds back.
I don't know what happened to Cameron Barker. That's a good question, but he is back a bit.
What's going on there?
I don't know. I don't know where I missed that one.
Nothing's come up on my screen. Oh. What? Doesn't make any sense. Okay. Alright.
Ben Casby not in. Okay. Let's see. I don't know what happened there between Casby and Barker for that 10-second gap. What I will tell you right now is Bradley Sellers is in the pits, Michael Locke's in, Magnus Dahlgren's in, Scar Pope has been in and out for his final pit stop, it looks like. George Angelidis needs to run it through to the end here. He's 45 seconds back from Scar Pope. I'm showing Scar Pope has done his third pit stop already, though. I don't know, did I miss something somewhere?
It's possible we missed. It's interesting because I've just gone back, looked at Barker, and there's nothing obvious. He's not had an off or anything. So yeah, nothing indicates exactly why he's suddenly that far back.
Yeah, I don't actually know. It's a weird situation. I'll have to remember to ask during post-race and see if someone can tell us exactly what in the world happened with that through. Watching Mr. De Bruin here in the Peugeot 9x8 continuing around, has some fun friends not too far behind as he is trying to stay nice and smooth. Mike Bell there just behind by about a second and a half and is continuing along. Down in the bottom right is going to be the GT3s. That's the number 037.
There's something not
that
quite
is Peter
right.
Meyer.
There's something not quite right with the. I don't know if you've noticed, but it says gap to next car is 30. Actually, there might be a car in front. Ignore what I'm just saying. Just ignore what I've just said. I'm talking absolute rubbish. I'm blaming the headache that I've got. So, no. And that's not.
Well, I will tell you.
So I had a headache anyway. So just to make that clear.
I will tell you that Casby and Cameron Barker are into the pits as it stands. Dan Kirby is out and about here, still running through. We're 52 laps in, 12 minutes and 55 seconds to go here as it stands. We're watching Mr. Wouter de Bruin trying to hold on against Bell. Bell's going to dive up the inside there. Good clean pass into turn one.
How much quicker was he down the straight there?
Ridiculously fast, and I think that's the slipstream on the main straight really coming into effect. I think that is the big thing with the main straight, is the slipstream is really what makes the difference. It's huge, and unfortunately for Mr. De Bruin, it's dropped him down into fourth place. Bell's in third, but look at the gap they have to Kirby. Kirby still, I think, needs to pit again, and so does De Bruin, though, is what's unfortunate. Luke Mitchell's into the pits now, so everything is popping off here with 12 minutes to go, and we talked about this at the top of the broadcast. It starts off crazy, it calms down, things get crazy again. Here's Eduardo Benica, who is putting a lot of pressure on JT Tammy just ahead and is really, really trying to push his way forward. This is your battle for the GT3 overall win.
Yeah, it's nice to get some GT3 action. But this is what we said, right? This is what I predicted. And Davy Judd's only 5 seconds back from this. It's like, it's really hotting up.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I don't think we're going to have a good answer for who wins until, honestly, they cross the line. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of how I like these races. I like these races to be very, very competitive and close.
Yes.
And, you know, after 80 of 90 minutes, the fact that the GT3s are separated by 0.7 of a second, I mean, that is huge. Look at the long line of cars we have here into turn one. You've got, that is Wouter de Bruin, who's going around. Big slide! I believe that was De Bruin. I
think it is. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
And big slide there through turn one, turn two, into Coca-Cola corner now. Still trying to hold on. That is a Mustang who's went way off and just said,
I think was just getting out of the way of everything. So
he said, I want no part of this. Look at JT Tammy and Eduardo Bonica battling as they try to let Hypercars through. Eduardo, for a second, I thought was going to rear end JT Tammy. And JT Tammy, I don't know how wide the back of an Aston Martin is, but he's going to try to make it as wide as this Fuji racetrack is. As we go through hard on the brakes, Eduardo to the inside. That is JT to the outside. They're going to tap. It's going to bring him around. The Hypercar in the back is saying, I just want to get around, guys. Let me through. And now they continue through from...
David Judd behind's had a moment, so he's lost out. He's unfortunately now, he was 5 seconds behind, so that's he might still be within a chance to sniff and grab a P2, but he's only got 10 minutes to really to close that down. So yeah, Hypercar's doing a good job here. I mean, I know we've been a little bit overcritical of some of them, you know, making rash moves, but there was some patience shown by a Hypercar there.
Yeah, and that's George Angelidis, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Blimey, I've just paid George a compliment. Oh, crikey! What's the world?
I think that's your second compliment to George of the day, if I'm not wrong.
Oh no, somebody put me down.
For the record, we love George. Well, yeah, we love George. I'll leave it at that. We go through, we continue on. Vuder de Bruin is into the pits here in the Hypercars, so it looks like at this moment we'll see what happens and where it lands, but it does look like George might possibly have himself on a very solid P2 in Hypercar AMs with the alternate strategy. So big shout out to him. Eduardo Bonica and JT Tammy, they are not done fighting this on. This battle is going to go for probably another 9 minutes if I had to guess as they continue along here. Side by side they go. Where they stop, nobody knows. And they come down the hill, up the hill, around the hill, through Dunlop. Yet again, hard on the brakes. And you see every time Eduardo has a little bit of a run, but he is compromising a little bit so he can follow through. I think he wants the pass into turn one if he can nail it through turn one. That's the big thing. He's right on the back of JT Tammy, though. But he's either... there's a little bit of a tap.
So JT pitted not long ago, right? And Eduardo pitted 13 laps ago.
Yep, that is correct.
So
and they both should make it to the end.
You would expect JT to be in a much better position with the fresher grip, but you know, it's clear that Eduardo's got some pace right now, and he's really going on the attack. And as you say, we're going to try and see a move here into T1.
Yeah, I think we watched Eduardo early trying to conserve. He's up the inside here, turn one, hard on the brakes. JT Tammy to the outside. And again, that inside line seems to play well into turn one. JT Tammy has to give it up. And with 7 minutes, 50 seconds to go, new leader in GT3's Eduardo Bonica. And now the question is for Eduardo, can he hold off JT Tammy for 7 minutes? 7.5 minutes. Can he do it? He's going to try.
I think he might. I think he's got the pace at the moment. David Judd, interestingly, has just got into the pits. So Johnny Gutierrez now is up into P3 in class.
Interesting. I wasn't expecting that.
David Judd is in P4. Must have had a splash and dash. Maybe he just miscalculated his fuel or something.
Possibly, yeah. I'm not sure. So, but interesting to see that come to fruition because Johnny Gutierrez in the Mustang will be in P3, so that'll be a good run. But who wins the class? Well, we still don't know for another 7 minutes and counting. Eduardo Bonica leading JT Tammy. JT Tammy seems really quick through this third sector, though, but it is Aston Martin versus Aston Martin, and they've got Hypercars trying to come through as well. And you see going through up the inside goes JT Tammy. Eduardo to the outside here. The Hypercar is going to try to make its way through, and JT Tammy's going to slot in. He wants the slipstream from Eduardo. I'm going to go down the backstretch here. Eduardo wanted to break out there and try to break the slipstream, but you see that JT Tammy's staying right on the back here. We go down the main straight yet again, and now it's going to be into turn one. Nobody has the inside line on the other, so they're going to follow each other through. Nice and pretty as you please. Into turn one, and it seems like Eduardo a little bit more stable here in the late race than he was early on, and JT Tammy there in second, now right on the back of Eduardo. So Eduardo started to pull a gap. Now JT started to close that gap.
That's got to be a
Eduardo
track cut, surely.
Yeah, using all the track he can, trying to get an advantage. If he's saving any track cuts, he's using them right about now.
Yeah. I also felt like they're just using slightly the same car, but slightly different lines, as they've got a hypercar now approaching very fast as well. But just riding on board with JT just seems a little bit more stable, as where Eduardo's really pushing the limits, I think, at the moment. So, but he's only got to do that for a short while because time is ticking away. It's just over 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, they do say a loose race car is a fast race car, so we're going to see here for Eduardo if that proves true as we continue on along here in the VWSC here on CMS Racing with 5 minutes to go in counting. We continue along here, and again, JT Tammy up the inside to Eduardo Bonica. Eduardo Bonica holding the outside. He gets the run out in the corner exit. It's Aston Martin versus Aston Martin, so the only difference is in setup and who has their car set up better. Well, at the moment, Eduardo is going to get the run down the main straight. JT Tammy right behind with Slipstream. Can he get up there on the inside into turn one? We've seen the pass into turn one a million times now across the past 85 minutes, and JT Tammy not close enough. You see in the bottom right, we're riding on board with him. He had a little sniff of the nose there, but way too far back to make something count. We're through turn one yet again, and yet again, it is Bonica ahead of JT Tammy. As we continue along, they have Wouter de Bruin, who is about to come around them somewhere. JT Tammy has to give way very quickly. Eduardo Bonica is going to continue to hold on just a moment longer. We're through Coca-Cola Corner. We're coming through 100R as it stands. And now into turn 6, into turn 7, yet again. And again, you see what we talk about with the GT3s being faster than hypercars sometimes in the corner. And I believe it was Stacy who said that earlier in YouTube chat, that it was faster for the GT3s in certain areas. And you almost saw it right there. With under 4 minutes to go here, we see Eduardo Bonica just trying to run his way through as best as he can. He's got a Ferrari coming up for company there and goes through, lets him through, no harm, no foul. But look at JT Tammy right up the back. Eduardo's line compromised a little bit from the hypercar. JT Tammy still right there within a second if he can hold on to it. And that is the $1 million question, is can he hold on to it for at least 2 more laps? And man, the longer it sits, the harder it is, because here's JT Tammy yet again, takes the deeper line up through Panasonic. Now we're down the main straight, and we continue on along and out. Magnus Dahlgren there on the inside, goes around, goes out. Adios, see you later. Look at the gap, though, between Eduardo Bonica and JT Tammy as they go through. Cameron Barker here in 3rd place. Also trying to hold on a little bit here against Dan Kirby. Of course, these are CMS Pro teammates, so I'm sure the gloves are off, though, and there it goes, Dan Kirby around Cameron Barker. No harm, no foul. Down in your bottom right is going to be that battle for GT3, and we will continue to watch because Eduardo Bonica still trying to hold on. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Can he hold on for the GT3 win here around the 90 minutes of Fuji?
Yeah, extreme battling. Eduardo looks like he's kind of opened up the gap ever so slightly. It's the biggest we've seen it so far, but it is still under a second at the moment. So, like you say, we've got just over 2 minutes of the race remaining. I'll keep an eye on the race leader to make sure that we don't miss them crossing the line. But this is the closest battle out on track at the moment. And JT, I've noticed that has a slightly different line coming out of the final corner, which seems to give him a sniff. But add to your point, I think Eduardo must be running slightly different settings, because he just seems to have the pace on JT down the back straight, which allows him to keep first position. But unless JT's just playing and holding back and knows that, you know, he's going to do it on the final lap, and here we go, final corner. But he's nowhere near as close as he was the last couple of times around.
Yeah, he's going to try, though, through, but yeah, I think JT has lost a little bit of that pace, or he's trying to conserve something there with JT Tammy, but the gap for JT is 3/4 of a second now, 0.8 of a second. The gap's opening. I think JT Tammy might have lost his chance here as we go through. 1 minute, 20 seconds left to go, and it does stand. Eduardo Bonica just needs to stay nice and smooth for at least this lap and one more, I believe, as we go through and around. Looking to see where our overall leader is at the moment. It looks like he is coming out of the third sector, I believe. And we do have a battle right here. This is going to be McQuarrie battling it out with Moreno, and they are battling for second place here in the GT3 AMS as they go through. This is going to be McQuarrie in the C8. It is going to be Moreno in the Porsche. Back behind the 911, running the 911 number, trying to make his way through on the bottom right corner of your screen is going to be our race leader, Ben Kesby. Ben Kesby currently running around the double right-hander of 100R, bringing his way up into turn 6, turn 7. We're under 60 seconds to go as it stands. We'll see, is this the final lap, Paul, or do we have this in one more? 30 seconds to go. I believe this is our final lap.
I think this might be our final lap. Yeah, right.
So and here's what's interesting. Mike Bell behind by 0.8 of a second. That is Mike Bell right behind Ben Kesby. So Ben Kesby's got to hold on for another 3/4 of a lap. So it's not over yet. I don't know where Mike Bell came from.
Oh man,
but the gap is
back
right
at one point.
there. Yeah, what has happened? Time is called. Half a second the gap through a few more corners. What could happen here? What? As they come through, here it goes. This is going to be the exit, the final corner. Bell's got 0.6 of a second to go through. Ben Kesby, it's been 90 minutes here in Fuji, and as it stands, he barely wins through a gap that was 13 seconds, comes down to 0.3 of a second at the line. And Mike Bell in second place, but Ben Kesby will win the VWSC 90 minutes of Fuji, with Dan Kirby coming across third, with Mr. Cameron Barker in fourth place, if just barely across the line they go. And now we look for Herlock, Dan Herlock there in fifth place. He's going to be coming around. He's got a bit more to go here as it stands, and he's going to come across the line as well. Fifth place here in Hypercar Pros, George Angelidis. Second place.
P1.
Scarpope will bring it across the line here, as you say, Paul. Very good run from him. Eduardo Benica has managed to pull out 2 seconds on JT Tammy, though, so that battle in the GT3 Pros does go to Eduardo Benica there against JT Tammy. He's able to find just enough there in the end, and that is the number 82 Hypercar that's just running with him, and that number 82 Hypercar is going to be our friend. I don't remember who the number 82 is now because I'm trying to remember, and I don't remember. Oh, it's Timon Subic. I recognize the livery. Know what I'm doing here. Eduardo Benica, the winner of the GT3s here in the VWSC 90 minutes of Fuji as it stands, and brings it across the line. Very good win, over 2 seconds on JT Tammy there with a good run. And then in our GT3 AMS, it is Ryan Paulbert Reyes who will be bringing it across the line here momentarily. Or actually, sorry, he's already been across the line. He's running a victory lap, it looks like, as it stands, as he wins there in the M4 GT3s. I think it's the first time we've seen a BMW on the podium, actually, as opposed to have been very, very used to seeing the Bices on the podium, or the NSXs, or the Aston Martins. So I think that's the first time we've seen the BMW win here in VWSC this season.
There's a car on its roof in the pits.
At least it's in the pit lane, I guess.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, I don't... 90 minutes of Fuji, and we started with Ben Kesby spinning, and we end with a hypercar that I don't think is Ben Kesby, but could be Ben Kesby, upside down on the pit lane.
Let's do the session results.
And we bring up our session results here. Ben Kesby, after 60 laps around Fuji in 90 minutes, is going to be your overall winner in the Crown Dental Group Ferrari 499. Mike Bell in second place. Dan Kirby in P3. Cameron Barker in fourth. Dan Herlock in fifth. Luke Mitchell in sixth. Vuda de Bruin in P7. Magnus Dahlgren in P8. Scar Pope, your winner of the Hypercar AMS. We questioned if it would be George Angelidis with his pit strategy, but it was indeed Scar Pope with the pace advantage. Timon Subic rounds out your top 10 here today. We go from there. P11 was indeed Bradley Sellers. From there, it was Alexander Saram. Sarama in P12, Michael Locke in P13, George Angelidis second place in the AMS with Oliver Newman in P15 overall, and Jerry Chen P3 in the Hypercar AMS with the Mistral Porsches. John Mayer 17th overall, Eric Monet 18th overall, Jason Whited P19 overall, and Luke Goodlife P20 overall in the Hypercar AMS. From there, we go to what was a beautiful GT3 battle. Eduardo Benico with JT Tammy and Johnny Gutierrez. That's your podium. P21, 22, and 23, respectively, overall. David Junton, 24th, and Jamie Jalecki in P25. Ryan Paul Reyes in a BMW finds his win in the GT3 AMS with Ross Smith down in 27th overall. Pierre Moreno, Alexander McQuarrie, 28th and 29th, but that is the end of your podium for the GT3 AMS. Adrian Rice in P30. Peter Meyer in 31st. Eugene Major in 32nd. Stephen Miller in 33rd. Matthew Bice in 34th. Matthew Overton finds his way in P35. Carl Strual in 36th. Stephen Bice in 37th. Gilles Lalonde in P38. Maximilian Petrafsky in P39. And Philippe Decardi in 40th place. And our only DNF of this race. So, tell you what, that was a good fight, and let's see which drivers are available and who we want to grab first, and see if we can't talk to some of these drivers about the action that happened, because that was a race with a lot of action, I have to say. Very lots of action here. And let's see here. Paul, you got a preference on who we start with, my friend?
Let's start with Scar Pope.
Yeah, let's bring in Scar Pope. Scar, my friend. Good evening.
How we doing?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing winning in the Hypercar AMs?
It was a good fun race. I normally don't have a lot of fun at Fuji, but that Asada was just set up nice and nervously, and I made it through, and I didn't spin, so all good. Very good race from me.
It seemed like it was a good run all the way through. You had a lot of pace here because you were even battling for a top 5 overall at one point. I don't know where you finished overall in the end, but you were battling pretty well up there for a while.
Yeah, I think if I had pushed really hard in that final stint, I would have just hung on to Magnus, but while everyone else was fuel saving, I was going flat out, so it looks a bit different than what it is. But as soon as Magnus stopped fuel saving, he just left me for dead 10 seconds up the road. So, but yeah, I had good fun battling with him.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch there. I have to ask, George Angelidis was trying to run a 2-stop strategy, and it got him second place. Were you worried about George getting you on 2 stops versus 3?
No, 2 stops wasn't going to work here. By the second stop, I was basically 5 seconds behind George and caught him in that stint. So I knew I had the pace and the strategy to win it. It was just a matter of not spinning, and I managed that, and it all came together. It was great.
And Scar, just a few races left here in the season to go. We've got Indy, Road Atlanta, and Bahrain coming up, and we'll see where things go. You're currently P4 in the championship. We'll see where things change after this. Anyone you want to thank? Anyone you want to shout out before we let you go? Enjoy the sweet, sweet taste of victory.
Yeah, big shout out to CMF and everyone who put this together, all the other races for making it fun, and you guys for the commentary. It's all been a blast. Thank you to everyone.
Awesome, and thank you, Scar. Congratulations, and we'll see you here in a few weeks here at Indy.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.
You too. All right, Paul. So that is Scar Pope. Let's grab Ben Kesby and talk to Ben Kesby for a second, because I have one question for Ben Kesby, our winner overall here today. Ben, how did the gap go from like 12 or 13 seconds with you and Mike Bell down to like 0.2 of a second at the end?
Yeah, I was fully aware of that.
What happened?
My tyres were pretty short at the end. I had been beaten up quite a bit through the race, so there was some damage. But and I was just trying to play it somewhat safe with the traffic. I think he was going for it. So gaps vanish.
And Ben, you led 23 laps. Mike led 23 laps, and Dan Kirby led 13 laps. I have to ask because I see you do this often, and I only see Ferrari hypercars do this. The split axle strategy, running hards on the front, mediums on the rear. Is that just a handling thing, or is it tire deg? What makes you decide to do that split axle strategy?
It's mostly the heat deg. So we have a rally car setup. We've got 40% power running through the front wheels at all times. So we just absolutely burn out the fronts. So the mediums last like 2 laps, and then they drop off so much that it might as well use the hards on every track. So yeah, just a deg issue.
So, Ben, one last question for you. Looking at the track before the race, we said GT3s were going to play a bit in the hypercar, and we saw some big scary moments happen between any hypercar and GT3 that we saw. Did you have any big moments that we might have missed? And, how did you pick your way through GT3 so cleanly?
I don't know how clean it was, to be honest. I was all right. Near the end, there was a little bit of issue with other hypercars. I think I lost quite a few seconds to that one towards the end, but mostly it was okay. It was just difficult because it's such a wide track for that last sector, and we can carry so much more speed, but they can carry the inside line and brake later. So, you just end up next to each other for 3 corners, which is less than ideal.
Yeah, it's a big win for you here today, though. Anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out before I let you go, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, just everyone that runs this. Awesome job. Shout out to Stormgan and George as well, because they gave us a slight BOP break that we needed with the fuel usage, so we were able to stay in there towards the end. And then shout out Mika, because he invited me in his team when no one else did, and yeah, good big up props to him.
Awesome, and big shout out to you, Ben. Congratulations on your win. We'll see you here in a few weeks here at the Indy 100.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and that was your overall race winner, Ben Kesby. Let's grab Eduardo Benica, the GT3 winner here, because I want to know from Mr. Eduardo Benica exactly how it felt to get that pass done with 5 minutes to go on JT Tammy.
Good evening, guys, and felt really good. I think that this race was all about the strategy. So even if I was a bit faster than the guys, but everyone tried different things, and I didn't change out tires in the first stop. Probably JT did something similar, and that was hard. I think the fair and hard, and it was a good race. It was very nice to have this kind of battles.
Yeah, and Eduardo, kind of watching through, it seemed like early on in the race, it seemed like the car wasn't handling as well. Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I had some problem with tire overheat. The rear tires overheat in the beginning, the first stint. It was totally unexpected. I had to crank up the traction control at some point, but I was able to manage and hold the position for the rest of the race.
So, Eduardo, I asked Ben Kesby this, and I'm going to ask you kind of the opposite of what I asked him. With the hypercars, what sort of strategy did you have to put in to try to let them through and get around and, utilize them for your strategy and make sure that you didn't have any big moments with them?
Well, that's hard. I think I always try to avoid to the apex, to be side by side on the apex, but it's not always possible. Sometimes you have to lift and let the guy pass. You're gonna lose some time, and brave to not lose the position. And that happens almost multiple times with JT, but it's a part of the race.
Awesome. And Eduardo, it was great to watch you run through your battle there at the end. Got tons of time. It was awesome to watch. Anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out before we let you go and celebrate your win here? Yeah,
I want to thank you, Eugene, for being the teammate, helping with strategy for the race. And William, he's not here today, but probably in the next race he'll be back. And everyone who was responsible for the event in general.
Awesome, and a big shout out to you. Congratulations on your win, and we'll see you here in a few weeks in Indy, okay?
Okay, guys, thank you, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, you too. Last, but certainly not least, is the legend Ryan Paulbert Reyes, who has put a BMW on the top step in GT3M. Ryan, good evening.
Hello, yes. It was tough.
Talk me through your race, because it seemed like that was a very difficult one.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't think I would come out with the win today. Pierre Moreno, how he drove a Coda on that Porsche, he's incredibly fast. So the only thing that I can think that I can have for strategy is just stay super consistent and nail all my apexes and my racing line and all that, and navigating through the traffic. And it happened that Pierre Moreno, he actually he had a mistake in the pits, so staying consistent gave me the win. So I gotta just my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour right now because I'm just so burnt out.
Talk to me about how, you make it through a 90-minute race, especially if you're running the BMW. Typically, we see in the GT3Ms, it's usually the Bices and the C8s, or it is the Acuras that we see running through. But you're in a BMW, which I think you're the only person on the grid that was in the BMW. Does that give you any challenges?
Car is incredibly thirsty, so a lot of it is fuel managing, and then trying to capitalize on the pit stops and making sure I pit at the right time. So it's a lot of variables that go in my head. So I know there was some really good GT3 battles ahead of me, and knowing that if I just hang back and not push and try to pass them, I can save fuel and just stay consistent. I can take advantage of it. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. The Corvettes, they're amazing in the infield, amazing in the corners, but knowing the weaknesses where I can pull away or pull up on them on the straights, it kind of helps out. But it's mostly just knowing what cars are going against. That goes by just practicing the other cars in single player and offline mode and figuring out their strengths and weaknesses. And that's how I can, manage to race with the BMW.
Yeah, it was really awesome to watch, and the BMW seemed very stable to handle. Looking ahead at the final few races here, though, we've got Indy coming up, and then Road Atlanta, and then of course Bahrain. What are your goals for the final few races here this season?
Final few races, definitely just podium. Just staying on the top 3 steps. Because I joined the season probably like mid to the end of the season, I believe. So right now it's just kind of like building up my strength and building up my abilities to fight for maybe a championship for next season. We'll see. So that's pretty much my goal, just to finish on either the top 3 in the last races.
Awesome. And it'll be interesting to see how you do there. But of course, Ryan, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out before we let you go, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I like to shout out 3 people. So my teammate Alex for helping me practice after work and all that today, and 2 others. So we call him our race engineer, Mac. He's actually super sick right now, so hopefully he gets better. And even though he was super sick, helping me set up the car. And of course, my girlfriend, who's also sick too. So I want to thank her for letting me ignore her for about like 3 hours out of the day. So, I got to make her happy.
Always have to thank the missus. And Ryan, big shout out to you. Congratulations on your win here. And we'll see you in Indy, where you'll be able to pull that one off again.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank you. All right. Well, 90 minutes of Fuji. Lots of action. Didn't feel like there was a slow moment in the race, and felt like lots of good runs all the way around. And Paul, I will say, Mr. Glover, it's been great to have you outside of the production booth doing commentary alongside me. It's been great to hear your input. It's not something we get very often. You should do that more often.
Thank you. I do commentary from time to time. That's how I started out in broadcasting, doing sim racing. I started out doing commentary, but yeah, when R Factor 2 comes into play, you don't really want to be doing both. You want to try and sort of highlight the action in the right way rather than trying to talk about the action at the same time, because unfortunately it means you're going to miss things. So, but yeah, a great race today. Started a little bit rocky, I thought, with some of the off tracks and things, but it did settle down, and we saw as we saw in the GT3s, some great battle for P1 there between Eduardo and JT Tammy. Yeah, well done to all the other drivers out there today. A really good showing, and it just showed how tricky Fuji really is. You know, and well done to George for making his strategy work and getting a P2. Unfortunately, Scarpipe had a little bit too much for him today.
Yeah, it was a good battle all the way through. And if you're interested, again, 3 more rounds left of this modern season that goes through. If you're interested in joining, be sure to check out the description of the video and go to cmsracing.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring the bells here on YouTube, both Champion Sim Racing's channel and the JP Broadcasting Network. It lets us keep doing what we do, and it's completely free for you to do those things. So we continue to bring it along to you. Check out everything in the description, every link, and be sure to support Storm Gang Simulation, the amazing work they're doing, both in the historic, which Ross still hasn't told me the year, but he's told me the year, VWSC and the modern VWSCs. But that is going to be where we round out this broadcast here today. So on behalf of Paul Glover, on behalf of every one of the drivers, my name is Bradley Dalton. We've taken you start to finish here at Fuji. Be sure to join us here at the next time, where we'll take you start to finish yet again. Good night.